In the world of military forensics, what you see...
Talk to me.
Well, it looks like Colin's car was shot at, boss. Several partial fingerprints on the driver's side window here.
may not always be what you get.
Whenever you go into a crime scene, you never know what you're going to expect.
Everybody leaves something behind.
In theater, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, the danger's magnified significantly.
Get the gun and go!
We don't ever give up on the case or the evidence.
Welcome to the real world of crime scene investigations, military style. Whether it's the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, or Marine CID, the rules are the same. When it comes to crimes committed by or against the military, the key is to process the scene, get the evidence, and get out safely. Because at the end of the day, it's the job of all of these agents to make sure those who break the rules pay the price.
If you do it right, the rewards are great. Truth can be had. If you do it wrong, tremendous things can happen. The perpetrator can get away. You could look at the wrong person. So it all comes down in the seeking of truth.
The place, New Orleans. The victim, a civilian, part of a military family. At first thought to be a suicide, the NCIS investigator who arrives shortly thereafter thinks otherwise.
What really piqued my interest was the position that the victim was in and the fact that his hands were very clean for a gunshot wound to the side of his temple.
No exit wound over there?
If he had actually shot himself, as his wife had suggested to the first responders, there would have been a little bit more of blood or tissue or even gunshot residue.
No blood on the wall at all?
The revolver, which was a .38, was cocked and underneath his left shoulder, although the entrance wound was to the right side of his temple.
It's weird.
You train your folks to find that something that is left behind, that to hit that hanging curveball, to look for that mistake.
Special Agent Kalen Duker got it right. It wasn't suicide, it was murder. And it was traditional criminal investigative work that helped unlock the case.
I kind of use the adage, garbage in, garbage out. Just say we have a bad fingerprint lift or we have a bad photograph of a latent print. If we at the scene collect things improperly or maybe don't collect things entirely or document it right, that key cannot be turned in our lock and solidify our case.
Traditional police work is central to military forensics and often key to a jury's understanding of the case. But when agents are deployed, the rules of the game may not change, but the playing field definitely does.
Traditionally, when you do a crime scene as a criminal investigator, you're not in a hostile environment, so you can take your time, you can process a scene very methodically, very slowly. We do not have that luxury when we're in a deployed environment.
All right, I got the hallway. Clear the route to your left. Clear.
A lot of times we are brought in to a hostile environment, have to process a crime scene very quickly. We're talking minutes.
Use your angle. Use your angle.
And then we have to leave that area as quickly as possible.
Sir, can you hear me? Look at me. Get that attorney, get on there, stop it, please. You've already evaluated him. You've determined that he's no longer an issue. Get the gun and go.
You don't have as much time at a scene if you're off of one of the FOBs. If you're off one of the camps and you're out in the communities, it's much faster.
Ask him, maybe he can walk. Maybe he can walk. Try. Get him 11 feet. Come on.
Battlefield forensics, born out of necessity and constantly evolving.
You got to get in place, set up security, so your folks are protected as well as yourself, and get what you need and get out. Because it's, I mean, it's real. It's real.
Move! Move! Help this guy! Move, let's go! Brother, get under him! Support him!
For NCIS agents training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia, class is in session. Not only is basic criminal investigative technique on the lesson plan, but how to do a job that can often take months, even years, in a matter of minutes, all in the middle of a hot zone. This is high-risk operations training. On the surface, it looks like a driving course for a rock star's bodyguard. But in reality, it's the circumstances an agent might find themselves in when they deploy overseas. And just understanding forensic technique isn't enough.
The biggest difference is the safety of the individuals processing the scene. You have limited time if you're exposed to a battlefield forensic type of scene. You're limited in the equipment that you can bring to a scene. What can you carry into a crime scene as opposed to driving a truck up to a crime scene. So the time factor, the safety factor, and the equipment factor are all things that are the biggest changes in a traditional crime scene versus a battlefield environment.
Get out of there! Into the woods! Let's go! Let's go! Go, go, go! Got the rear.
NCIS is trying to prepare us to go into the theater, Afghanistan, Iraq, the Horn of Africa. And the movements and techniques that we're learning here are really designed to save our lives and keep us safe, but really try to accomplish the mission that we're trying to get done.
Right here. Good job, guys. Anybody hurt? All right. This is what I need you guys to do real quick. No exceptions. Helmet off, throat guard off, and breathe. Okay? We'll hydrate in 1 minute. We're going to do a quick debrief. We'll get you out of here.
Taking fire right now. They're all moving this way.
While one group of NCIS agents is pushed to the limit on a high-risk obstacle course, another is about to find out what happens when a prime piece of evidence is blown sky high.
What we're going to simulate here is this is going to be a Bastr's car, right in the backseat of the car. It's going to be a suicide bomber on a motorcycle. They're going to pull up next to the car, set the device up on the back of the motorcycle, walk away, remotely detonate the device. This could represent a convoy overseas in Iraq or Afghanistan. There's about a pound of explosives in the EFP, the explosive foreign projectile. That is going to be command detonated when they see the convoy going by. The only problem with the pressure plate is that you're not sure who you're going to target. You might have a person driving by that's not your target and it activates the device and the bomb. Basically, as you see here, you have what we call fragmentation. This is a nail that went inside the car. Also, you have a nail that went inside the window right here. Would have killed the passenger in the back of the back seat there. In this scenario right here, we have an explosives forming projectile that was used on this vehicle, or an EFP, typically used over in Iraq and Afghanistan. These are used typically on convoys or vehicles that are traveling along the roadside. They're placed on the side of the road in berms or in dead carcasses. And as a vehicle passes by the EFP, it's command initiated by the bomber himself, and it basically forms a copper plate which goes in the side of the vehicle, as you can see right here, and kill the passenger inside the vehicle. Also, EFPs can be placed in the ground. A lot of times they're buried in the roadside, and they're activated by the bomber, and they go up through the ground into the vehicle from underneath. What we had here is we had a roadside bomb, or a bomb that was buried inside the ground. As a vehicle drove over it, we had a pressure plate that was buried in the ground. As a vehicle drove over it, it could have been activated with a pressure plate, or it could have been activated by the bomber that was hardwired off into the woods.
3 explosions.
What you need to do is you need to pick a team leader, evidence technician, photo people, schematic artists, and decide how you want to process this scene.
3 groups of agents.
So it's kind of at an angle.
Dave, are you ready to move in closer?
Yeah, I need one more around the outside.
All right.
There's registration and bill of sale in a plastic bag.
Their mission, under a tight deadline, determined the type of device that was detonated. With debris fields stretching several hundred yards and a tree line nearby, this is no easy task. Exactly what they might find in theater.
You guys just keep going through the left of the frame for 1 second, thanks.
Initial observations of this, the information we have is that a Navy-dependent wife and her male companion were traveling and were struck by some type of explosive device. He is deceased. The driver of the vehicle has been transported to the hospital. We haven't had a chance to talk to her yet. As they pass through this area, I have an open area here, which leads me to believe that the device, whatever struck this vehicle, was in this berm over here based on the damage to the berm. This vehicle was moving, and it didn't come to an immediate stop. They didn't slam on brakes. So once the driver was incapacitated, the vehicle's going to move a little bit. So with the glass there and what appears to be a blast area there, that's where we're going to focus on as far as finding any type of device.
As the post-blast teams start to process the wreckage of the 3 vehicles, another group of NCIS agents are about to undergo training that could not only determine who's at fault, but that could also save their lives.
It's allowing you folks to make the choices quickly based on proper planning.
This is combat crime scene training. Get in, get out, stay safe. In short, all an agent needs to know to process evidence in the middle of potential insurgent activity.
It's a 6-week-plus course that prepares our already, experienced, if you will, federal agents or special agents in various disciplines to develop a technical skill set, a mindset, a tactical awareness to operate in theater comfortably. So why did we choose this? We have a backpack that we've developed, and in that backpack is actually all the gear we need to process a death scene or a crime scene outside the wire. If you're not the observer talking, and you're not talking to the observer, you really should just be engaged in your tasks.
Young male comes out with AK-47, fires several shots towards the Marines. Marines return fire and kill the young male. The allegation by the Iraqi family is that he was handing over the weapon as directed and did not threaten the Marines, and the rifle went off by accident.
Today with the teams from NCIS, we're doing a scenario where they come in and do tactical combat crime scenes. The Marine Convoy Commander will give them a brief on what their expectations are of the agents that are with the Marines. The Marines will then travel the safest route to get to where they need to be. Once they're there, establish perimeter security, make sure that it's safe for the agents to go inside the house, and the agents will come into the house and do a hasty crime scene because we never know how much time we have on scene. My homeowner for Team A is granted permission to come into his home. He requests that you keep the damage down to a minimum if you possibly can. He and his wife and 2 small daughters have left. They've left the building. Okay. I've done a quick clear of the house. Everything looks good. Keep in mind that we could call you back out of the house at any time. Good to go? Good to go. Team A.
The structure looks like a fabricated Connex box with 2 entrances, as a front entrance and rear entrance. There is looks like a 5.56 millimeter bullet casing on the floor just at the front of the entrance. Looks like an older shell. It has been expended. The primer is indented. It has been labeled as Echo 7 with fluorescent marker. There's another 5.56 millimeter shell casing adjacent to the first one we discovered along the wall. Directly across from the main entrance, it's been labeled as Alpha 1.
That's 7 feet.
I see several apparent bullet defects in the wall near the main entrance. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A cluster of 5 has apparent bloodstains. The other 2 do not. The door opens into the room. Which way is north? Can you give us a heading real quick? Alright guys, the back. There's also apparent blood station on the wall. There are apparent blood stains with footwear impressions on a rug adjacent to the coffee table, which have been labeled with fluorescent markers. Whiskey 1,
middle of the room, 10
Kilo
feet.
1, Whiskey 2.
All windows are 3 feet by 3 feet square.
Cameraman, did you get any photographs from approach angles from the windows? Get some down here. Right and left on the second deck. We'll do the same as
Overall
on both
dimensions,
sides.
39 feet in length, 4 feet 11 inches.
Yes.
Got it. Go.
Army Avenue. 4 feet. And Navy Boulevard. You can see the other dwellings as well as the entrance to Rushy Fork
How
Road.
much more time do we need? Everything that's been photographed.
The shutters don't open all.
Got a patrol about a half a click north taking fire right now. They're all moving this way. Pack up your stuff. We got to go. Back in the truck.
Let's go.
Hey, we got 30 Sierras. Get back in the truck.
Southwest corner of the dining room. Moving as quickly as we can, doing as much as we could in that time frame. And then as the scene developed, we were told there's some insurgent activity that engaged a patrol up the road that was heading toward position. We had 30 seconds to break contact, collect our evidence, and get back to the vehicles and get on the move. You guys keep your what's put out. One of the things as a team leader when you're downrange is, you want to get the scene and all the evidence for the examination, but you also got to maintain the tactics of your personnel and make sure you leave with all your personnel.
Nobody can afford, but particularly in this day and age, nobody can afford to be in stasis. We have to constantly train, be educated, go to conferences, get out there and understand the threat, and also understand our science and keep pursuing it and maintaining the discipline, maintaining our skill sets, so we're always one ahead of whoever would do us harm.
There was a bigger piece of it too. There's like 4 pieces of it. Yeah, I found a bigger piece of that with that balloon. I just don't know. The receiver.
At the blast scenes, agents are close to putting together the pieces of their destructive puzzle.
What else do you need? What else do you need on a receiver in order for that?
Power and an antenna to receive the signal.
Did you guys find any antenna?
No.
Picture, if you will, kid's remote control car has motors inside that turn and twist, and that's how they operate. And that's how the wheels turn and the wheels go. We found a small motor in there and a couple of remote control arms. What we think was he set the device in the berm to wait the victim driving by. From his observation point, used the remote control to close the circuit and detonate the device. What you've got here is you've got this device, this heavy metal pipe, and a thin layer of copper or lighter steel inside here with a concave face. When this explosive is set off back here, this comes out and forms a slug. It's called an explosively formed projectile. It's extremely lethal, even against up-armored vehicles. These are not. These are feared devices. You don't want to be in a vehicle that's hit by one of these because it will cut right through the armor. When you start finding things like this little thing, this little small piece of foil, that's the make of the remote control device, Futaba, and maybe the model, we don't know, S3003. And that's a small light piece, and it was sitting right next to, whatever explosive set that off. Everybody leaves something behind, and bombs leave something behind, and they leave a lot more, really, than I kind of thought. It's been an eye opener for me.
They're right on target. They got all the pieces that they need to do, more than I thought they would get. They got a lot of the real small pieces that are hard to identify, but because they did a methodical search, they were able to pick it all up.
putting an IED back together, determining the cause of death, or collecting the blood and bullets necessary to process a combat crime scene are not the last steps for forensic evidence. That stop is USACIL, the Army's crime lab at Fort Gillem, Georgia.
The laboratory is about 125,000 square feet now, and we're growing into a third expansion here in the near future.
Believe it or not, the military has its share of crimes. We receive about 3,000 cases a year here at our facility from around the world. We provide forensic laboratory support to the entire Department of Defense. We receive tens of thousands of items of evidence from criminal investigations around DoD.
There are two different types of evidence. It's non-porous items of evidence and porous items of evidence. Non-porous items of evidence are those items of evidence, if you put the latent print deposit on it, it just sits on the surface. Porous items of evidence would actually absorb that latent print deposit.
This can has been superglue fumed to preserve any of the prints that are on it. A chemical dye stained rhodamine 6G was applied to it, and you can see all the fingerprints that were developed. And in order to visualize it, you bring it under the laser at 532 nanometers. It's a green light, and it allows you to visualize any of the latent prints.
The processes for porous and non-porous items of evidence are different, but they both are placed eventually in the photo enhancement software, and both are compared to record prints and potentially could be identifying a suspect. Once we conduct a latent print examination and the examiner finds that the latent print was not made by any of the record prints that were submitted, we then submit it to our APHIS department, which is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, and then it's searched against the databases that's available to USACIL.
Latent prints are just one of the 7 technical disciplines that USACIL covers, including drug chemistry, forensic documents, digital evidence, and trace evidence.
Trace evidence is small items of evidence. Usually you need the aid of a microscope or instrumentation to be able to see it, analyze it, or compare it. On our end, as the examiner's end, as well as the agent's end, it's always rewarding to find that needle in the haystack, that one piece of evidence that may be able to link, again, individuals to a scene or solve a case.
And finally, the discipline that often deals with the deadliest evidence, firearms. Will the bullets and casings found at a crime scene match the weapon left behind? First, the processed gun is reloaded. Next, the gun is fired into a water chamber. And finally, the casings and bullets are retrieved.
I'm conducting a microscopic comparison of a questioned cartridge case found at a crime scene to the test-fired cartridge case that I just recovered from the water recovery system. And what I'm looking at right now is the one on the left is your evidence cartridge case, and the one on your right is your test fire. And I'm looking for these imperfections or irregularities that are caused during the firing process. And you can see how they match up. This is a positive identification that both of these cartridge cases were fired in the same firearm to the exclusion of all other firearms manufactured.
I think there's a growing expectation over the last 10, 15 years that information generated by the forensic sciences through what we do in crime labs will be available. The public in general, a lot of juries are expecting that forensic science evidence in trials, and a lot of investigators have become very dependent on information that is generated in crime labs by the forensic sciences to help in their investigations.
Finding a needle in a haystack, looking for the part that doesn't fit the rest of the puzzle, combing through a debris field in the middle of a combat zone. These are everyday activities for the agents who work in military forensics. One of the biggest challenges they face, television.
Abs. Abby.
I wish everything was solved in an hour. I do work a lot of cold cases, which have been going on for decades. So if things could be solved in an hour, that'd be great. As far as the basic principles that the TV shows use, I think that they're good intentions and they're based on our basic foundation for how you actually work a scene. However, we actually don't look as attractive working scenes. You're going to be in a biohazard suit and you're wearing things to protect yourself from whatever the scene is on there. So it's not a glamorous job.
For me, it's real life. It's taking what a lot of people see on TV in dramas or crime dramas or the news, and I'm actually out there in it. I'm involved in it. It's that aspect of it. It's real life, and sometimes I have to stand back and realize that this is, is really happening. I'm really investigating a murder or a death or a sexual assault, and that it's a real deal for these people, the victims as well as the witnesses. And I think that's what motivates me the most, is that it feels like I'm giving back.
Is there a difference between forensics and military forensics? Probably not stateside, but absolutely once agents are deployed. And the technology is always changing to meet the needs of those deployed to combat zones. Can forensic evidence alone solve a crime? Maybe, maybe not. But without it, you might not have a case. I'm Sergeant John Mann, and this is Recon.